My family threw my birthday card in the trash to plan my sister's lavish gala, expecting me to foot the bill like always. I'm Emma, and this year I decided to give them a different kind of surprise. While they waited for a party I forgot to pay for, I was sipping cocktails on a beach in Miami. Want to see how their $15,000 disaster unfolded? Hit that subscribe button, and let's watch the bridge burn. 26 felt exactly like 25, mostly because I woke up to the sound of my mother screaming at a florist over speakerphone. I lay in bed for a moment, staring at the ceiling fan cutting through the stale air of my childhood bedroom. The sun was pressing against the blinds, bright and insistent. "Happy birthday to me," I whispered to the empty room. I waited for the feeling of excitement to hit, that childish flutter in the chest, but it was replaced by a familiar knot of anxiety. I brushed my blonde hair out of my face, pulled on a robe, and headed downstairs. The smell of burnt toast and expensive espresso filled the kitchen. My mother, Linda, was pacing the island like a general inspecting the front lines. Samples of silk napkins were strewn across the granite countertop, burying the coffee maker. No, I said Arctic blue, not baby blue. Chloe hates baby blue. Mom barked into her iPhone, her manicured nails tapping aggressively on the marble. She didn't look up as I entered. She just pointed a finger at the coffee pot, signaling me to pour my own coffee. My dad, Robert, was sitting at the breakfast nook, buried behind his tablet. "Morning," I said, my voice cracking slightly. I cleared my throat and tried again, louder. "Good morning, Dad." "Mm-hmm," he grunted, swiping a finger across the screen. "Gas prices are up again. Unbelievable." I leaned against the counter, clutching my mug. I wanted to say it. I wanted to scream, "It's my birthday!" But we had a rule in this house, spoken or unspoken: do not interrupt the flow of Chloe. "Emma, finally," Mom said, ending the call and tossing her phone onto a pile of fabric swatches. She didn't say happy birthday. She didn't rush over to hug me. Instead, she slid a heavy metal clipboard across the counter. It stopped inches from my coffee mug. "What is this?" I asked, though I already knew. "The vendor list for the gala," Mom said, breathless. "The caterer is trying to upscale the appetizers, and the DJ says he needs a deposit by noon. Since you're the event planner," she used air quotes despite the fact that I had been running successful corporate events for 3 years, "I need you to fix it. Chloe is too stressed to deal with logistics right now." I looked down at the clipboard. Chloe's Quarter-Life Crisis Gala. That was the actual name printed on the header. My sister was turning 24, and apparently that required a black tie event at the Vineyard Club. "Mom," I said, my grip tightening on the mug, "do you know what date it is?" She blinked. Her eyes darted to the calendar on the fridge. "September 12th. Why, is the deposit due earlier?" "No," I said, the word coming out small and pathetic. "It's just... never mind." "Good," she said, already turning back to the napkin samples, "because Chloe is coming down any minute, and if she sees cream instead of white, she's going to spiral. Just handle the DJ, Emma, please." It wasn't a question. It was a command. I took the clipboard. I always took the clipboard. As I looked at the tasks that would take me hours to complete, I heard footsteps thumping down the stairs. Chloe burst into the kitchen wearing silk pajamas that cost more than my car payment. "My skin looks gray!" she shrieked, grabbing a spoon and checking her reflection in the back of it. "My stress is making me gray. How can I have a gala if I look like a corpse?" "You look radiant, sweetie," Mom immediately cooed, abandoning the napkins to rush to Chloe's side. Dad finally looked up from his tablet, smiling. "There's the princess. Don't worry, honey. Emma's handling the boring stuff. You just focus on looking pretty." I stood there, holding the cold metal clipboard against my chest like a shield, realizing I wasn't just invisible, I was furniture, useful, present, but utterly devoid of feelings. "Right," I said to no one in particular. "I'll get right on it. The day passed in a blur of other people's problems. I spent 3 hours arguing with a DJ who wanted to charge extra for premium lighting, and another 2 hours renegotiating the price of imported orchids for the centerpieces. By the time I closed my laptop, the sun was setting, casting long, orange shadows across the living room floor. I hadn't received a single text. Not from my parents, who were in the same house, not from Chloe. Dinner was supposed to be the turning point. In our family, birthdays were usually celebrated with a specific dinner request. Last week, I had mentioned, loudly, that I was craving Italian. I walked into the dining room, a tiny spark of hope still flickering in my chest. Maybe they were playing a long game. Maybe this was all a setup for a surprise. The table was set beautifully. Crystal glasses, the good china. My heart did a little jump. Then I saw the food. Sushi. I am allergic to shellfish. Not deathly allergic, but enough to make my throat itch and my stomach turn. Chloe, however, loved sushi. "Oh, good, you're done working," Mom said, carrying a massive platter of sashimi to the table. Chloe felt like Japanese tonight, and honestly, after all the stress with the gala planning, I thought she deserved a treat. "Right," I said, sitting down at my usual spot. "Sushi." "Don't be dramatic, Emma," Chloe said, popping a piece of tuna into her mouth. "Just eat the avocado rolls or the salad. God, you always make everything so complicated." I served myself a small bowl of white rice and stared at it. Dad uncorked a bottle of expensive champagne. The pop echoed through the room. He stood up, glass raised, his face flushed with pride. This was it, the redemption moment. He would realize his mistake, he would say, and of course, to our eldest, happy birthday. "I'd like to make a toast," Dad began, his voice booming. I looked up, gripping my fork. "To my girls." He looked at Chloe. "To Chloe for being the light of this house. We know 24 is a scary age. I almost choked on my water. But you are handling it with such grace, we can't wait to see you shine at your gala." He turned to me. I held my breath. "And to Emma, thank you for handling the logistics. It's a relief to know we have someone reliable." "Cheers," Mom chirped. "Cheers," Chloe squealed, clinking her glass against Dad's. I didn't lift my glass. The silence in my head was deafening. It wasn't just forgetfulness. Forgetfulness is an accident. This was a hierarchy. I was the staff. Chloe was the star. "Is something wrong?" Mom asked, noticing I hadn't taken a sip. "You've been sulking all day." "I'm not sulking," I said, my voice dangerously calm. "I'm just tired." "Well, drink up," Dad said, sitting back down. "We need you sharp. The venue contract needs to be finalized tomorrow, and they're asking for the final guarantor signature." "About that?" I said, looking at the grain of the wood table. "The venue usually requires a substantial deposit or a cosigner with a high credit rating." "Exactly," Mom said, chewing on a piece of shrimp. "Since you work in the industry, you get that vendor discount, right? And your credit is spotless. It makes the most sense for you to sign for it. We'll pay you back, obviously." Obviously. Just like they paid me back for the car repairs last winter. Just like they paid me back for Chloe's emergency trip to Cabo. "I'll handle it," I said. The spark of hope in my chest didn't just go out. It froze over. Later that night, as I was clearing the table because Chloe was too full to move, I saw something in the recycling bin. It was a bright pink envelope. My grandmother always sent bright pink envelopes. I reached in and pulled it out. It was unopened. It was covered in coffee grounds. "To Emma, happy 26th birthday. Love, Nana." Mom must have swept it off the counter when she was laying out the napkin samples. She hadn't even looked at it. She had thrown my birthday in the trash to make room for Chloe's gala. I stood there in the dark kitchen, holding the coffee-stained envelope. I didn't cry. Crying was for people who thought things could change. Instead, I felt a strange, cold clarity wash over me. If they wanted me to be the reliable event planner, I would be. I would plan an event they would never forget. The next morning, the house felt different. Or maybe I was just seeing it through a new lens. The sprawling white walls, the high ceilings, the immaculate furniture, it all looked like a stage set for a play I was no longer starring in. I was just the stagehand. I sat at the mahogany desk in my father's home office, the glow of the laptop screen reflecting in my glasses. My mother stood behind me, her perfume, something floral and overpowering, clouding the air. "Make sure you select the gold package," she instructed, pointing a manicured finger at the screen, smudging the glass. "Chloe needs the lighting to be perfect for the photos. If the lighting is bad, she'll cry." "I know, Mom," I said. My voice was steady, devoid of the tremor that had been there yesterday. "And the discount?" she pressed. "You're applying your employee code, right? That 20% is the only way your father won't have a stroke when he sees the total." I stared at the blinking cursor in the promotional code box. In the past, I would have typed in my personal ID immediately. I would have put my own credit card down for the deposit to hold the date, then awkwardly asked for reimbursement later. Reimbursement that usually came months late or not at all. "This system is down for employee codes right now." I lied. It rolled off my tongue with terrifying ease. "But don't worry, I'll set it up so the invoice goes directly to the main account. It's cleaner that way." "Fine, whatever," Mom sighed, checking her watch. "Just get it done. We have a dress fitting in an hour." She turned and walked out, her heels clicking sharply on the hardwood. I was alone. I deleted my name from the primary contact field. I typed Robert Vance. I moved to the guarantor field, the person legally responsible if the bill wasn't paid. Usually, this was me. I was the safety net, the one with the credit score they hadn't ruined. I typed Robert Vance. Then came the email address. This was the most crucial part. The venue's automated system would send payment reminders, contract updates, and the final pay or cancel warnings to this address. I didn't use Dad's work email. He checked that too often. I didn't use Mom's personal one. I used the old family email address, thevancefamily@provider.net. It was an account created in the early 2000s. It was currently drowning in thousands of newsletters, spam offers for male enhancement pills, and chain emails from distant relatives. My parents hadn't logged into it in 3 years. They didn't even know the password anymore. I did. I scrolled down to the payment section. I entered Dad's Amex details for the initial deposit, just enough to secure the date, but leaving the massive $15,000 balance pending. The mouse hovered over the Submit Binding Contract button. My heart hammered against my ribs, not out of guilt, but out of adrenaline. This wasn't just a prank. This was financial sabotage. If I clicked this, and if I didn't intervene later, the train would leave the station with no conductor. I thought about the sushi. I thought about the toast to Chloe. I thought about the coffee-stained card in the trash. Click. "Thank you for your booking," the screen chirped cheerfully. I closed the laptop just as Chloe sauntered into the room holding 2 iced coffees. She didn't offer me one. "Is it done?" she asked, taking a sip, "because I really need to post the save the date on Instagram, like right now." "It's done," I said, standing up. I felt lighter. "The venue was booked in Dad's name. You're all set." "Finally," she said, rolling her eyes. "You're such a lifesaver, Em. Seriously, what would we do without you?" She turned and walked out, already typing on her phone. "I don't know, Chloe. I guess you're about to find out." She didn't hear me. She was already out the door, and for the first time in my life, I didn't follow her. 2 weeks flew by in a deceptive calm. To my family, everything was proceeding perfectly. To me, it felt like watching a lit fuse snake its way toward a pile of dynamite. I was at work, organizing a corporate retreat for a tech firm, when my cell phone buzzed. It was catering by Antoine. I stared at the screen. Antoine was the best caterer in the state, and he didn't work for free. The second deposit, 50% of the total, was due yesterday. I let it ring 3 times before picking up. "Hello?" "Emma, darling." Antoine's voice was clipped, losing its usual buttery warmth. "I'm looking at my accounts receivable, and I don't see the wire transfer for the Vance event. We're 14 days out. I can't order the Wagyu beef without that deposit." "Oh, that's strange," I said, leaning back in my office chair and spinning a pen between my fingers. "My father, Robert, is handling all the financials for this one directly. I'm just the consultant." "I see. Well, I've emailed the address on file twice. No response." "He's very old school," I said smoothly. "He probably missed it. I'd suggest calling him directly, but he hates being bothered during the workday. Just keep emailing. He'll get to it. He's good for it, you know that." "Fine," Antoine sighed. "But tell him he has 48 hours or I release the staff." "I'll pass it along." I hung up and didn't pass it along. That evening, the tension in the house shifted from financial to physical. I was in my bedroom, rustling a zipper on my suitcase. My bed was covered in packing cubes, sunscreen, and 3 new bikinis I had bought with the money I usually spent on Chloe's birthday gifts. The door swung open without a knock. It was Chloe. She was holding a mock-up of the seating chart. "Em, I need you to move Aunt Sheila away from the bar. She gets to..." She stopped. She looked at the suitcase. She looked at the bikinis. "What are you doing?" "I'm packing," I said, folding a sarong. "For what?" "My vacation." Chloe laughed, a sharp, incredulous sound. "Okay, but the gala is on Saturday. You can unpack later." I stopped folding and looked her dead in the eye. "I'm leaving Friday morning. I'm going to Miami." The silence that followed was heavy enough to crush along. Chloe's face went through a rapid transformation. Confusion, realization, then pure, unadulterated rage. "You're missing the gala?" Her voice went up an octave. "But who is going to manage the run of show? Who is going to tip the valets? Who is going to make sure the DJ doesn't play country music?" "I'm sure you can figure it out," I said, turning back to my suitcase. "It's your party." "Mom? Dad?" Chloe screamed, spinning on her heel and stomping into the hallway. Within 30 seconds, my room was crowded. My father looked annoyed at being dragged away from the TV. My mother looked frantic. "What is this nonsense about Miami?" Dad demanded. "I booked a trip for my birthday. Remember? It was 2 weeks ago." "But the gala is this weekend." Mom threw up her hands. "Emma, we rely on you. You can't just abandon your sister because you're feeling, what, petty?" "It's not petty. I requested this time off work months ago. I'm going." "You are jealous," Chloe spat, pointing a finger at me. "That's what this is. You're jealous because I'm having a big party and you didn't. You're trying to sabotage me by not being there to help." "We are very disappointed in you, Emma," Dad added, crossing his arms. His voice was low, the disappointed father tone that used to make me cry. "We thought you were mature enough to support your family. Apparently, we were wrong." I looked at them, the 3 of them united in their outrage that the servant was daring to take a day off. "You're right. I need to focus on myself for a bit. I'm sure everything will go smoothly. You have the contracts, you have the vendors. You don't need me. Don't expect us to pay for this little tantrum trip," Dad warned. I wouldn't dream of it. I smiled. It was the first genuine smile I had in weeks. I paid for it all myself. They stormed out, leaving me alone with my packed bags. They thought the crisis was that I wouldn't be there to hold the clipboard. They had no idea that the real crisis was currently sitting in an unchecked spam folder, ticking away. I left the house at 4:30 a.m. on Friday morning. The house was silent, save for the hum of the refrigerator and the ticking of the grandfather clock in the foyer. I didn't slam the door. I didn't write a dramatic note. I simply wheeled my suitcase down the driveway, the rhythmic thump, thump, thump of the wheels on the pavers sounding like a heartbeat. The Chloe's Gala banner was already strung up between the porch columns, sagging slightly in the middle. It looked pathetic in the gray, pre-dawn light. My Uber driver was a chatty man named Gregor who wanted to talk about the weather, but I put my AirPods in before we even hit the highway. I played white noise, static. It was the only thing that could drown out the years of conditioning telling me to turn around, go back, and fix everything. By the time the plane wheels lifted off the tarmac at JFK, I felt a physical sensation of lightness, as if gravity had released its hold on my ankles. I ordered a tomato juice and stared out the window at the shrinking city. Down there, somewhere in the sprawl of Connecticut, the sun was rising. My mother was waking up. She would reach for her phone, she would check the weather, and then she would expect coffee to be made. For the first time in 10 years, the pot would be empty. I landed in Miami just after noon. The humidity hit me like a warm, wet blanket the moment the automatic doors slid open. It smelled like exhaust, salt, and sunscreen. It smelled like freedom. I checked into a boutique hotel in South Beach, Art Deco architecture, neon lights, and a lobby that smelled of lemongrass. The concierge, a young guy with a dazzling smile, took my card. "Happy birthday for 2 weeks ago, Miss Vance," he said, checking my ID. "We upgraded you to a room with an ocean view." "Thank you," I said, feeling a lump form in my throat. A stranger had acknowledged my birthday more sincerely than my own father. I went up to the room, threw my suitcase on the bed, and walked out onto the balcony. The ocean was a strip of turquoise stretching to the horizon. I breathed in, filling my lungs with salty air. Then I made the mistake of looking at my phone. I hadn't turned it off, just silenced it. The notifications were stacked on the lock screen like bricks in a wall. 14 missed calls from Mom, 8 missed calls from Chloe, 3 missed calls from Dad. I scrolled down to the text messages. Mom, 10:25 a.m. Where is the contact info for the florist? They haven't shown up. Chloe, 10:45 a.m. The banner is sagging, Emma. Fix it. Mom, 11:30 a.m. Pick up the phone. The caterer is saying something about a wire transfer. I don't have time for this. Dad, 12 p.m. Call me immediately. The panic was setting in. It was a slow burn right now. Confusion, annoyance. They still thought these were just administrative hiccups. They thought that if they yelled loud enough, I would magically appear from the ether to smooth it over. They didn't realize yet that the florist hadn't shown up because the deposit check, which I usually wrote, was never sent. They didn't know the caterer wasn't just saying something about a wire transfer. He was threatening to pull the plug. I felt a spike of guilt, sharp and familiar. My thumb hovered over the call button. I could fix it. I could call Antoine, give my credit card number over the phone, and beg him to deliver the food. I could call the florist and pay the rush fee. I could save them. I looked at the ocean. I looked at the complimentary fruit basket on the table. I put the phone in the hotel safe, punched in a random 4-digit code, and locked the door. Saturday night, the night of the gala. I was 3 mojitos deep, sitting at a beachside bar that played reggaeton loud enough to vibrate my ribcage. The sun had gone down hours ago, leaving the sky a bruised purple. I was tanned, tipsy, and trying very hard not to think about the time. It was 8:30 p.m. Back in Connecticut, the party would be in full swing. Or rather, it should be. I had retrieved my phone from the safe an hour ago, telling myself I just needed to check the time. But addiction is a powerful thing, and my addiction to my family's chaos was potent. I turned the phone on. It didn't just buzz, it convulsed. It vibrated so hard on the table, it almost fell off the edge. 57 missed calls. Voicemail is full. The text messages were no longer angry. They were hysterical. Chloe, 6 p.m. The bar is closed. They won't open the bar, Emma. They say no payment. Mom, 6:15 p.m. I tried to give them the Amex, but it declined. Fraud alert or something. You need to call the bank. Chloe, 6:45 p.m. People are leaving. Aunt Sheila is sober and she is leaving. I hate you. Dad, 7:30 p.m. The manager is threatening to call the police if we don't settle the remaining balance of $15,400 immediately. Pick up the goddamn phone. I read the texts, tracing the words with a finger that trembled slightly. The Amex declining was a stroke of luck. Or rather, a predictable outcome of Dad's spending habits, combined with the massive pending charge from the venue that finally tried to clear. The fraud alert was likely just the limit being hit. I pictured the scene. The Vineyard Club's ballroom, half lit because the premium lighting package wasn't paid for. The empty buffet tables where the Wagyu beef should have been. The guests, my parents' wealthy friends, Chloe's influencer wannabes, standing around awkwardly, clutching empty glasses because the open bar was shut down. And Chloe. I pictured Chloe in her custom gown, mascara running down her face, screaming at a tired venue manager who was just doing his job. It was cruel. I knew it was cruel. But then I remembered the coffee-stained birthday card. I remembered the toast. To Chloe, the light of this house. The phone rang in my hand. It was Dad. I stared at the screen. Dad calling. I took a deep breath, the salty air filling my lungs, and slid my thumb across the screen to answer. Hello? My voice was calm, contrasting sharply with the noise on the other end. Emma, Dad roared. The background noise was chaotic, shouting, clinking glass, and what sounded like Chloe sobbing loudly. Where the hell are you? Do you have any idea what is happening? I'm in Miami, Dad. I told you. Is the party not going well? Not going well? Not going well? He was spluttering. They cut the power to the DJ booth. The caterer left with the food. They're demanding $15,000 or they're going to sue us for breach of contract immediately. Pick up the goddamn phone. Well, I said, sipping my drink, that sounds like a billing issue. You were supposed to handle this, he screamed. You said you took care of it. I did. I booked it. I set up the account. I put everything in your name just like Mom asked. I forwarded all the invoices to the family email. The family email? He paused, confused. What family email? The one you guys never check. I didn't pay the bills, Dad. I'm not the guarantor. You are. There was a silence on the line so profound, it cut through the background noise of the disaster. You didn't pay? His voice dropped to a whisper. But you always pay. You always fix it. I know. And look where that got me. A forgotten birthday and a clipboard. Please, Emma, he said, his voice changing. Desperation crept in. Please, just give them your card. We'll pay you back, I swear. Chloe is devastated. This is humiliating. I can't do that, Dad. I'm on vacation. And besides, my limit is only 5,000. I spent most of it on this trip. You ungrateful little... I hung up. I stared at the phone for a second, then blocked the number, then I blocked Mom, then Chloe. I signaled the bartender. Another mojito, please. Celebrating something? He asked, grabbing a fresh mint sprig. Yeah, I said, watching the moon reflect off the black water. My birthday. Finally. I woke up the next morning with a headache that throbbed in time with the waves crashing outside. But for the first time in my life, the pain felt entirely my own. It wasn't a headache caused by my mother's shouting or my father's tax returns. It was just a good, old-fashioned hangover. I reached for my phone on the nightstand. The screen was blissfully clear of notifications, the block feature working its magic. But curiosity is a persistent itch. I didn't unblock my family, but I did open Instagram. I searched the hashtag we'd spent 3 weeks curating, hashtag Chloe24Gala. The feed was a train wreck. The top posts were humiliating. There was a video from one of Chloe's best friends, Brittany, filming the empty buffet tables with a sarcastic narration. So it's 9 p.m. and we're eating air, hashtag starving, hashtag fail. There was a photo of the venue manager arguing with my father in the background, his face purple with rage, while my mother held a hand to her forehead in a tragic, theatrical pose. And then a post from Chloe herself, timestamped 2 a.m. It was a black screen with white text, taking the break from socials. Betrayal is real. Don't ask. I closed the app. A strange cocktail of emotions swirled in my gut. Vindication, pity, and a cold, hard finality. The bridge wasn't just burned, it had been nuked. I spent the rest of Sunday reading a book by the pool, drinking water, and ignoring the phantom buzzing of my phone. On Monday morning, I flew home. The drive from the airport to the house felt like a funeral procession. The Connecticut trees were turning orange and red, beautiful and dying. When the Uber pulled into the driveway, the Chloe's Gala banner was gone. In its place was a trash can, overflowing with uninflated balloons and what looked like the custom napkins I had ordered. I walked inside. The house was silent. Not the peaceful silence of an empty home, but the heavy, suffocating silence of a battlefield after the fighting had stopped. My parents were in the kitchen. They were sitting at the island, exactly where they had been when they gave me the clipboard. My father was staring at a stack of credit card statements. My mother was stirring a cup of tea, looking 10 years older than she had on Friday. When I walked in, they didn't scream. They didn't stand up. They just looked at me. "You're back," Dad said. His voice was flat, gravelly. "I am," I said, setting my suitcase down by the door. "I'm here to pack the rest of my things." "You couldn't," Mom whispered. She didn't look angry anymore. She looked broken. The humiliation, Emma. The Kensingtons left before the cake was cut. The police were called to mediate billing dispute. We had to put $15,000 on 3 different cards just to keep them from arresting your father. "I told you," I said, leaning against the doorframe, keeping my distance. "I didn't pay the deposit. You knew that. You just didn't want to believe it because it meant you had to do something." "We gave you a roof over your head," Dad spat, the anger flickering back to life. "We gave you a car. We gave you everything." "You gave me a job," I corrected him, "a job I never applied for and never got paid for. I was the accountant, the maid, the planner, and the punching bag. And the one day I asked for acknowledgement, you toasted Chloe." "It was a mistake," Mom cried, slamming her hand on the marble. "One mistake, and you destroyed your sister's life over it?" "Chloe's life isn't destroyed. She just had a bad party. She'll survive. But I'm done surviving." I walked past them, up the stairs, and into my room. It took me 2 hours to pack. I didn't take everything, just my clothes, my laptop, my documents, and the few books that mattered to me. I left the furniture. I left the curtains I had sewn myself. I left the life of the dutiful daughter in that room. When I came back downstairs with 4 boxes and a suitcase, Chloe was standing in the hallway. Her eyes were puffy, her face blotchy. She looked like a child. "Are you really leaving?" she asked. Her voice was small. "Yeah, I am." "But who's going to help me with my resume? I was going to apply for that marketing job next week." I almost laughed. It was so absurd, so perfectly Chloe. Even in the wreckage, she was looking for a fixer. "You have Google, Chloe," I said, pushing past her. "Good luck." I loaded the boxes into my car, the one I paid for, in my name. I didn't say goodbye to my parents. They didn't come to the door. As I backed out of the driveway, I looked at the house one last time. It looked grand and imposing, a monument to image and perfection. But in the rearview mirror, it just looked small. 3 months later, my life fit into 600 square feet of hardwood floors and exposed brick. My studio apartment was on the 4th floor of a walk-up in the city. It didn't have a marble island or a chandelier that cost more than a Honda Civic. It had a radiator that clanked in the middle of the night and a view of a fire escape. But it also had something the mansion in Connecticut never had: peace. It was a Tuesday evening in November. I was in my tiny kitchenette, chopping vegetables for a potluck. The smell of sautéing garlic and onions filled the air, a scent that used to mean work, but now meant dinner with people I actually liked. My phone sat on the counter, screen facing up. I no longer kept it on silent. A notification slid across the glass. An email. Sender, Linda Vance. Subject, Thanksgiving. I wiped my hands on a dish towel and picked it up. I didn't feel the old spike of cortisol. My heart didn't race. I just felt a mild curiosity, like looking at an exhibit in a museum. "Emma, your father and I are willing to put the past behind us. We think it's time you came home for the holidays. Chloe is still very upset. She had to sell her car to help pay off the credit card debt from the gala, and she's struggling to find work without your help on her applications. We're all suffering here. We're a family, and families forgive. Dinner is at 6. Don't be late. Mom." I read it twice. Families forgive. It was a nice sentiment. But they hadn't asked for forgiveness, they had demanded my return. They didn't miss me, they missed the buffer I provided against reality. They missed the accountant, the maid, the punching bag. "Hey, Em, need help with the wine?" I looked up. Sarah, a girl I worked with at the event planning agency, was standing in the doorway, holding 3 bottles of Cabernet and grinning. Behind her, Mark and David, 2 other friends from the office, were struggling to squeeze a massive Tupperware of mac and cheese through the narrow doorframe. "No, I got it," I smiled, putting the phone back down. "Who was that?" Sarah asked, popping the cork on the first bottle. "Just spam," I said. "Nothing important." I selected the email. I didn't archive it. I didn't reply. I hit delete. Then I went into my settings and blocked the address. The rest of the night was a blur of noise, but the good kind. We sat on cushions on the floor because I didn't have a dining table yet. We ate off paper plates because I hate doing dishes. We laughed until our sides hurt about a client who wanted live penguins at a corporate retreat. Around 9 p.m., the laughter died down into a comfortable lull. Mark raised his plastic cup. "Wait, I have a toast," he said. My stomach tightened instinctively. The muscle memory of humiliation ran deep. I braced myself for a backhanded compliment or for the attention to shift to someone else. "To Emma," he said, looking right at me, "for finally getting her own place, and for planning this dinner, which is objectively the best meal I've had in months." "To Emma," Sarah cheered, clinking her plastic cup against mine. "To the hostess with the mostess," David added, taking a huge bite of bread. I looked around the circle. There was no golden child here. There was no hierarchy. Just people who showed up, brought wine, and said thank you. "Thanks, guys," I said. My voice was thick, but I didn't cry. I just took a sip of wine. It tasted better than the $1,000 champagne my father used to buy. Later that night, after everyone had left, I stood by the window and looked out at the city lights. I thought about Chloe, probably scrolling through old photos of herself, wondering why the world wasn't handing her things anymore. I thought about my parents, sitting in that big, empty house, waiting for a daughter who wasn't coming. They had forgotten my birthday. They had erased me from their narrative. But standing there in the glow of the street lamps, listening to the radiator clink, I realized they had given me the greatest gift of all. By forgetting me, they had forced me to remember myself. I closed the blinds, turned off the lights, and went to sleep in a home that was finally, truly mine.